Welcome, everyone, to Season 8 of the Gather Influence podcast, inviting women of faith across the globe to rise in purpose and influence your world with real conversations, bold words, and whole hearts. My name is Kim Hutchins, your Season 8 podcast host, along with my co-host, Kathy Ostapchuk. We are so glad you're here. We want to start by thanking our Season 8 sponsor, Global Aid Network, revealing hope and restoring life. Global Aid Network is revealing hope by sharing God's unconditional love and restoring life by demonstrating the gospel through compassionate action to those who are living in poverty, injustice, and crisis around the world. Please check out the amazing work they do globally at globalaid.net. Our theme for Season 8 of the podcast is Who Told You No? And we're sparking transformative conversations to make a positive impact in our nation and the world. You will love our conversations with the amazing women who will share their real and inspiring stories of their leadership journeys. We are here to come alongside you to connect, equip, and mobilize you as the female church in Canada and beyond, and want you to see yourselves in the lives of the women you hear on the podcast. And today, I'm excited to bring you Jennifer Thornton from Global Aid Network. Jennifer shares about GAiN, and we dive right into our conversation of who told you no and who told you yes. I think you'll love hearing what she has to say. Let's get started. Well, welcome, Jennifer. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. And you are with our sponsor, Global Aid Network. And your title is National Marketing and Communications Development Director, right?
It is a mouthful for sure.
It is. Well, I'm so glad that you're on and we can have a little chat about GAiN, but also your role there and in your life, who told you no and who told you yes. So why don't you first tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with the Global Aid Network?
Sure, I'd love to. So I grew up in Edmonton, Alberta, and after completing my degree in marketing, I spent I think almost 20 plus years in the area of marketing, communications, and development, various roles in Alberta and British Columbia, Ireland, Thailand, and a few others.
Lots
And
of places.
Thankfully, the ministry has been able to take me around to see and meet very, amazing people. And so I was continually, through that process, always drawn to the compassionate activity in each project. And it wasn't until I was in Thailand where I always saw this man walk by me who had no shoes. And I at the time was doing a marketing campaign there and just really felt compelled to him as well, and like providing some shoes, but also just some of the poverty I was starting to see. And so something was stirring in my heart at the time that when I came back after the project was done, Global Aid Network contacted me. Said, are you interested in using your skills with us? And the beauty of Global Aid is that they combine the word and deed. And that was definitely what I was experiencing in Thailand. So I joined them, been with them for 14 years.
Oh my goodness, that's a long time.
Yeah, sit on their lead team and have been able to travel a bit with them to the various projects that they have in the field. So
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I'm excited to hear about some of those projects, but let's take some time right now to jump into who told you no as a leader. Like, was there a season in your life where, God was just like, nope, not right now, or, had to have some hard conversations? And what did that look like?
yes. Well, I think the one that really stands out to me recently, I would say, is more on a personal level. In September 30th, 2021, my dad had experienced a cardiac arrest.
Okay.
And to help paint the picture, that day he was experiencing some pain and discomfort and drove himself to the doctor's office. And they did all the checks and everything. After some time, they let him go. And he had to do a few additional tests on his own. And then that night he had the arrest. And so he was taken in to the hospital and underwent surgery. And while he had experienced the arrest, he had experienced a hypoxic brain injury.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's a brain injury caused by the lack of oxygen. And so he was in the ICU for about 21 days and moved to the cardiac unit until January 6th, so about 3 months, and then in a rehab facility until March, so a few more months. So about 6 months was
It's a long process. Yeah. Yeah.
And through that journey, we had a lot of no's, a lot of difficult conversations, and maybe even like implied no's, if that makes sense, like suggested no's. And I think over and over it was whether or not, he wasn't ready for physio or a walk, except he was showing signs for that, or we were putting a stomach tube in him to help feed him. To let him go slowly instead of doing that. Whether or not it was the doctor who said he'd never walk out of there. We saw signs along the way, and I had to step into very difficult conversations when they were saying these things weren't possible. And I think, it was an experience that I wasn't prepared for, and it was an experience that I really had to rely on God for, his promises and what my mom and I at the time felt that the Lord was doing in small steps in his life. So we talked scripture. I think scripture that really stood out to us was the Spirit of God who raised Jesus from the dead lives in you in Romans. And then I don't know about you, but music just speaks to me.
Yeah, me too.
And so Believe for It by CeCe Winans. I don't know if you know that song. Yeah, when she says, they say this mountain can't be moved. They say these chains will never break, but they don't know you like we do. There's power in your name. So we were just clinging, or the other one, Battle Belongs, which is Phil Wickham. When I fight on my knees. And I just felt like the battle every day going in for 6 months, trying to fight for basically his life and advocacy for, for people to not give up on him.
Yeah. And that's a lot. Like, it's very intense. You need to be there all the time. We've just gone through some things with, in our family with health, and, it's hard, right? Like, it's work. It's a lot of work, and it's surprising how much time it takes, and just for the family to rally around together, right?
Oh yeah. And for the courage and boldness sometimes that you need, and the community around you that you pray for, or like to have them pray for you, for sure.
Yeah, well, and let's talk about a time that's like God said yes, right? He opened a door or surrounded you with people who opened doors for you. What did that look like?
Yeah. So if I stick with the same story, I would say there was a doctor that was our Esther. This doctor was brave and wise and discerning. She used her influence in ways that, just like Esther did in the Bible. So
awesome.
we had been advocating for further rehabilitation for Dad week after week as we went, and we kept being told he wasn't qualified to go and whatnot, and starting to look at long-term care. And so the doctors in the ward did 2-week stints, and then they would. And in that time, one of the doctors didn't do their 2 weeks because something else happened, and did 1 week. And for that second week, in walks this Esther, as I call her. It was a weekend, and within a few minutes of spending time and speaking and interacting with my dad, she had noticed something in him. And without us knowing, she applied to 2 rehab facilities.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that week she was overseeing his care, and she instilled in so much confidence in the situation,
Oh my
and
goodness.
my dad and then my mom and I, and she hands down was somebody who told us yes, and to keep going and not stop because she saw potential. Um, so yeah, that's somebody who sticks out in my head, I would say. I
Yeah,
can
that's awesome.
I can think of the community around at the time too, like people who just prayed for us that we didn't know. Um,
Mhm.
and it was almost like, in Exodus with Aaron and her and holding up Moses' hand. I felt like people were saying yes, like we'll rally around you and pray with you and support you.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome. It's amazing when the community comes around and is the body of Christ, right? Lifts up one another, and it's just so amazing to witness that, even though it's a hard season or a valley you're going through.
totally.
Yeah. Yeah, and are you surprised now where you are today and kind of how your life has played out in God's story?
Yeah, it's funny. I think professionally, no, I'm not
Mhm.
surprised. My education experience has always kind of been in this field, and so I'm thankful for the opportunity, but not surprised that I'm with GAiN. As a what I should have mentioned, I am a wife and a mother, and so
Mhm.
in that case, I'm not surprised. But I think for the years of caregiving for parents,
Mhm.
even prior to my dad's situation, we took care of my husband's mom. Um, I feel young for for
Yeah.
that reason. Before I think I had grown up with all these kind of plans,
Mhm.
and even like planning with my husband, what our future looked like. Um, I am surprised that we are in this season of, we've been married 8 years, almost all 8 years we've been caregiving. Uh,
Yeah.
and so that's, yeah, but I have to continue to keep my eyes focused on the Lord and like know that He, in Jeremiah 29:11, when He says, "For I know the plans I have for you," like He knew that this was going to be the case. So
Mhm.
I am surprised, but He's not.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I just have to keep my eyes focused on Him and yeah, give Him every thought that sometimes I'm like, why am I in this season? Like all my
Mhm.
just give it to Him, and one day hopefully there'll be a new season.
Yeah, and then over the last number of years when you've been doing this and you've been working with GAiN and just in everything as you're a giver, how did you keep your spiritual life healthy?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question because yeah, you get tired through the process, right? And you're
Mhm.
pouring out,
Absolutely.
and you're like,
Yeah.
when yeah, what is filling up my tank?
Yeah.
Um
Mhm.
so it's been tough. I would say with GAiN, because we're a ministry, there are a lot of really close friends and a lot of support there. So, like, I had a great community to speak truth, um, share, pray with me, share scripture with me. And so I would say that I do listen to a lot of music, and
Mhm.
so when I'm driving to appointments for my dad or, whatever, I've been, really seeking the Lord through a lot of worship and trying to, spend time, in that way. And then I would say in His word, sometimes it gets even if it's I get hard I'd be hard on myself, not being spend as much time as I would like at times. But
Yeah.
trying to cling to a few promises, um,
Okay.
and those promises, like, writing those down and just, kind of meditate on His word in those ways. So maybe it's not
Mhm. Yeah.
like good in the word, but, a few scripture.
Do you have
Yeah.
one that stands out?
Yeah, well, one of my favorites is Ephesians 3:20. Um,
Okay.
Now to Him who is able to do immeasurably more than we can ask or imagine, according to his power at work within us. I think what speaks to me so much is like the immeasurably more,
Mm-hmm.
and that I choose to believe, that he's got an amazing plan. That I can even ask or imagine. So while it's tough, being a full-time mom and a full-time, employee, staff member, and ministry, and then also caregiving.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a plan that's immeasurably more than I can ask or imagine. And so I just need to cling to his promises and keep my eyes focused on him. And that's probably what's got me through it.
Mm-hmm. And was there ever a time that God was asking you to say yes and you were like, I just want to say no right now, right? To take that step, sometimes it takes a lot and we don't necessarily feel like we're ready for it.
I know. I think back to a time when I was living in Ireland,
Mm-hmm.
and I was working on a media campaign that kind of spanned the north and the south. And
Mm-hmm.
I was located in a specific area with a team, and there were some difficult issues with the project, some team conflict. I was quite a bit younger, and I just, Kim, everything within me, I just wanted to leave that situation and move to another. I would come home at night, I would journal and pray and say, God, why am I here? I think
Yeah.
even at one point I wrote something like, if this is leadership, I am not interested. um, and I was like, I don't understand this.
Yeah.
But God did not remove me. He asked me to stay. He had other plans and wanted me to continue.
Mm-hmm.
And I think after I kind of resolved myself to that and begrudgingly, um, by his grace, after some time, there was some compromise, and I was able to split some time between another location and that one. And
Yeah.
um, but that was only by his grace. So yeah, I would say I wanted to pull probably a Jonah,
Yeah.
but I had to endure there and then saw his hand through that project. So
Mm-hmm. And thinking back over your life and in different leadership, I'm gonna start that again. In different leadership positions, all over the world, what is something you would say to encourage someone else who maybe is in a similar position, right? What would you say to encourage them?
yeah, well, surround yourself with a community,
Mm,
100%, who
yes.
speak
Yeah.
truth and who are committed to prayer. Um, I think also, as I mentioned earlier, to write down what you feel the Lord has said to you and his promises
Hmm.
so that you can look at it. Like I have sticky notes, on my monitor or in other places, and share it with that community that you trust, so that it helps with accountability. So that when you
Hmm.
hear other voices or you hear the no's, you have people who can remind you of what you feel like the Lord has said to you. Um,
Hmm.
and I think to try to continue to listen to the Lord's voice, like I think we all well, I do, long to hear the loud voice. And,
Yeah.
and for me, the Lord doesn't ever speak to me like that. He usually speaks in patterns, like, I have to see or hear or read it in like 3 or 4 different ways. Um,
Hmm.
with the verse Psalm 46:10 with be still and know that I am God. I think
I love that one.
find the stillness. Yeah. Like find
Yeah.
this um and hear his voice and try to silence those that are saying no. Um those are probably
Yeah.
a few.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think that's so encouraging because I know that you're not alone. There are many other people who are in similar positions that maybe just need to hear that word of encouragement. So I thank you so much for sharing that part. Yeah. And then I want to jump in and talk about Global Aid Network. You guys have been our sponsors this year for season 8 of the Gather Influence podcast. And Global Aid has been around since 1998,
Yes.
correct? Yeah.
Yes. We're celebrating our 25th year.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah,
and so I'd love to hear a little bit more. I know there are some projects, especially when I've been doing, just the scripts when I was reading them over, and there's the Water for Life initiative and the economic empowerment. And then you also mentioned there's a disaster relief and preparedness, right? And so there's so many interesting things, and I know that you guys have affected different people's lives, and I just love to hear a few stories and a little bit more about global aid.
for sure. Thank you for this opportunity too, to be able to partner with you guys in this way and
Mhm.
share a little bit about what we're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, so we're celebrating our 25th year. We're really excited about it, and we've seen the Lord's faithfulness all through that. We our mission is to reveal hope by sharing
Mhm,
God's unconditional love and restore life, and by demonstrating the gospel through compassionate activity to those who are living in poverty, injustice, and crisis around the world. And our vision is to see flourishing communities where people are physically, spiritually, and emotionally thriving.
mhm.
And so, as you mentioned, yeah, we have a worldwide network
Mhm.
where there's 10 other gains, and we're
Oh,
operating.
wow.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is exciting. We were just small, but there's a bunch, and we're now operating in roughly 40 countries together. So that's at a global scale. GAiN
Mhm,
Canada, we have three strategies, as you mentioned, our water strategy. And that's really the ongoing need for access to clean water and as
mhm.
well as the living water of Jesus in communities, primarily in Africa.
Okay.
And so this year we also were celebrating two important milestones. This fall we reached 3 million people.
I know, I saw that number, I was like, "That's amazing."
Yeah, so that we as well, because we
Yeah.
remember when the first rig went in, we have lots of stories, and we're just a small team and didn't know what we were doing. Um, and so to celebrate 3,000 wells through, reaching approximately 3 million people, that was
Wow.
exciting. And then also through the partnership of the local church, we've also planted over 1,000 churches through our water strategy. So
Wow.
yeah, so we have done a lot of celebrating this year.
Yeah, I guess so, that's huge.
Yeah, yeah, and then our economic empowerment um,
Yeah.
is our second strategy. And so this one's a little not as easy, like from the name, people wonder what it is, but we're basically
Mhm.
empowering women through microloans, vocational and financial literacy training, and
Okay.
counseling and spiritual formation through chaplaincy program, and then ultimately wanting to restore dignity and break the cycle of generational poverty. So we're in Paraguay with that, India we work in, and then we're trying to partner up and do some pilot projects in Africa with through savings groups,
Okay.
which are basically through the local church communities learn how to save and manage their money, as well as
Wow.
and lend money from one another. And then the
Mhm.
trainers share gospel-centered messages with those they teach. So that one is not as known as our water strategy.
Right, but you've got a story, right, about, just some of the lives that were impacted by that.
With economic empowerment.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we have well, we have I don't know which one to choose. We
I know, right, there's so many. Well, share whatever.
So we have Mariana.
Yeah.
So Mariana, she had problems maintaining her mini market, as they would say.
Okay.
She didn't have enough money to cover her personal needs and the needs of the business. And then one day she was invited to be part of what we would call a trust group,
Mhm.
which is a place of community and encouragement where 15 women come together weekly to champion each other as entrepreneurs. And so Mariana was gifted with a microloan at that time, which is a lump of money that she would use to help boost the productivity of her mini market. And through that, she was not only able to repay her loan, but she managed to grow her business and pay off
Wow.
her expenses.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, yeah, the lives that are impacted through these women's lives are amazing. She had never had the opportunity to study at a university, so she used the money also generated from her business to fulfill her dream of that. And she shared with us that in each cycle, I'm able to recharge my business and have more products. People from my neighborhood already know my store and come to my to buy my products. Many people from my neighborhood also began to join. I tell all the women to be encouraged with something small. God can do many things and surprise us. You just have to have faith and perseverance. So
Wow.
through her power of her trust group and her friendship, her journey continues towards financial stability and out of generational poverty. So,
That's amazing. And the lives she's impacting too, right? Like, wow.
yeah, yeah. So that's one where I think we are excited to see the impact through our partners and in those countries where um, women are seeing the both word and deed,
Mhm.
where they're able to provide for their families, but they also see that their value in Christ and the
Yeah.
dignity and their dignity.
Yeah. That's huge. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. And then I would say our third area is our disaster relief and preparedness. And
Yeah, let's talk about that.
yeah, so that's the heartbeat of how GAiN started. Uh,
Okay.
we were very focused on disaster, humanitarian aid, relief, um, and really this area is to try to bring hope and the love of Christ to those who are vulnerable due to crisis or
Mhm.
calamity. So this year we've been able to continue our response in the Ukraine. Uh,
Okay.
so we've been responding there as well as responding to earthquakes in Turkey, Syria, and then more recently in Morocco.
Oh,
So
wow.
um, so yeah, so lots of stories there. I can think of let's see. Uh I think her name's Reza. I don't want
Okay.
to her name. I'm sure it's said probably differently. She's about 39 years old. She lives with her
Okay.
husband and children. And despite the danger of staying there during the period of occupation by Russian troops in the area she's in, her family remained there because her and her husband were in charge of caring for their elderly parents. This is why
Okay.
this story stood out to me. She works as a hairdresser while her husband works in the municipal service in the city. And due to the massive explosion in the of the reservoir in her area, her house completely flooded and became unusable,
Oh my
causing
goodness.
city authorities to resettle their family in a hostel. And so
Wow.
four of them were huddled in the same room and share a kitchen with 16 other families. And so she shares life is not easy, wages have fallen, and the chances of saving enough money to repair their house or buy a new home are slim. But, she hasn't lost hope for her
Mhm.
for a better life and was inspired by the fact that people over the world are helping her. So we have these things called yellow boxes. They're a bunch of aid,
Mhm.
um, as among other things that we've been doing there. And she now has the resources to feed her family. And
Okay.
so she said, this is the evidence of God's love and care in her life.
Yeah.
And she says, I'm very grateful to everyone who is involved in this good deed. So that she's again one of many stories of another individual that's experiencing great loss
Mhm.
and crisis. But also she's an incredible woman of strength and grit, and it's been a privilege to come alongside her to try to help her rebuild.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. And so this Christmas, there is a catalog if people are interested in giving. Can you tell us a little bit about how that works and the best way for people to look at that and how that impacts the lives of the people they're giving to?
For sure. Yeah. So this Christmas, we have a number of gifts through it. We've just done a 12 days of giving, highlighting various gifts through it. And if you go to our website at globalaid.net, you would see this catalog. There's a banner that references it.
Okay.
But yeah, like if I think of people like what we've just shared with the stories. And then I think of people even like with our water area who this Christmas we're actually experiencing the greatest need for. Um, and so if people give, for water specifically, it could be anywhere from like a well that would provide approximately 1,000 people on average, a clean water,
Mm-hmm.
access to hygiene and sanitation. Um, and then they also they have the chance to see the Jesus film, um, and then are connected to a local church. And so that would be one way. And then out of that well, there's a variety different ways that people can give to clean water. If it's not the well, it's a portion of like 10 people or 5 people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So a well is 10,750, and then but for one person for clean water, it's $10.75. So
Okay. Wow. That's good. Okay. So anyone can give, right?
yes,
Whatever your means are. And we'll put a link for that in the show notes so that people can check out Global Aid and be able to give this season, right?
definitely.
Before the end of the year. That'd be amazing. And is there anything else you want to share with us about Global Aid Network that you would love for people to know?
Yeah, I mean, if there's ways that people would like to get involved with us too, like we do take people to the field. So if
Okay.
people are interested in seeing projects firsthand, we call
Hmm.
them life teams, labor, influence, finance, and expertise. It's an acronym for us. And
Hmm.
so we take people, it's like a missions trip, if you will. And so you can travel and see clean water for the first time in a village, and what that does. I know when I went to Tanzania for the first time and saw um, a village that was desperate for water, and women had been walking 5 kilometers to get it.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden this gift, they actually, to tell you the truth, started fighting over the water because they're used to the scarcity. Uh,
Yeah.
and but when we told them, no, 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 like this will not go dry, because we drill down to the natural aquifers, and so
Okay.
this will be, there's enough for everybody. Like then there was dancing and cheering and singing,
Oh,
and
wow.
so, people can come and see that, or people, if they're interested in the economic empowerment piece, people can come alongside some of the women that are starting these businesses. So there's an opportunity to come with us, and
Yeah.
we also really would welcome people to pray with us. There's a lot of some of the areas we're in, there's some difficult ministry, and so we would welcome prayer.
Hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. Well, this has been such a great conversation, and I loved hearing about your personal story and your yes and no, as well as all that Global Aid is doing throughout the world, right? And just impacting different people's lives, and how here in Canada can also contribute, right? No matter how small or how little we have to give. So I'll encourage people to reach out to globalaid.net, and you can follow the links there. And again, thank you, Jennifer, for being on. I've so enjoyed our conversation.
Yes, I as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, Merry Christmas to you.
Yeah. Merry Christmas. Global Aid Network dreams of a world with flourishing communities where people are thriving in all aspects of their life. Since beginning in 1998, GAiN has mobilized resources to help people in over 49 countries around the world, most of which have been women and children. The suffering of women and children produces an immediate heart cry in most people worldwide. When a child remains in need, not only is their present life, but also their future is subjected to heartache. Emotional trauma caused by suffering can gouge a deep scar in children, stunting their ability to give and receive love and belief that they are precious creations with significant roles to play in their nation's future. At the same time, women of all ages often live in years of generational poverty, or are treated as second class, and more especially during times of natural disasters and humanitarian crisis. As a result, 2 of GAiN's core strategies are focused on women and young girls. The Water for Life initiative in economic empowerment, by helping to improve the physical health of communities, encourage healthy communication, and foster an environment of respect for women, as well as empowering and equipping women with the skills and confidence to participate in and run incoming earning activities. GAiN hopes to see a world of flourishing communities where women and girls are able to thrive in all aspects of their lives. This Christmas, if you would like to impact the lives of more women, go to globalaid.net/catalog. For those joining us today, I hope that you were encouraged by my conversation with Jennifer. To connect with Global Aid Network, check out our show notes. In those show notes, we'll post links and helpful resources that were mentioned today. Remember to subscribe on your podcast app, and for those watching the video edition, subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you don't miss an episode. Also, hop onto the discussion by following us on social media. You can find us on Instagram at GatherWomen or online at gatherwomen.com. Be sure to join our subscriber list to find out how you can join the hundreds of women in Canada who are just like you, wanting to connect for mutual encouragement and leadership influence. Looking forward to next time. Thanks for joining us.